3 heirs, 1 throne, and a battle for England's soul. When Henry VIII died, he left 3 children. He left Mary, Edward, and of course Elizabeth. They all took their turn on the throne, and all 3 were very different rulers. And they all took their turn to define Tudor England. So today we are exploring all of his children through books that bring their life and actually their rivalry to life. Edward VI, the boy king. Now, Edward was actually the youngest, but because he was a boy, he bypassed his 2 elder sisters to sit on the throne. Edward, the only legitimate boy that Henry had, was 9 when he came to the throne. And because of his age, he couldn't rule without his uncles, because he was not old enough to take on the statecraft all by himself. He did die young. He only sat on the throne for 6 years. There are 2 books that I can recommend. One is the book by Janet Wortman, and it's this one here. I have read it and I really, really enjoyed it. Janet actually has her own channel, and I shall link it in the description below. There is another one called Boy King by Diamond McCulloch. It's about Edward VI and the Protestant Reformation. I personally think that he was a young monarch that was deeply influenced by his advisors. I do think that if he hadn't died young and he'd grown up to be able to lead the country all by himself, he would have definitely been a force to deal with. As regards to the religious side of his reign, he was a staunch Protestant, which did not actually sit well with his sister Mary, who was an equally staunch Catholic. Mary came to the throne after his death. However, in between there was Lady Jane Grey, titled the 9 Days Queen, because she actually ruled for 9 days. But actually, I'm going to talk about her in a different video. So now we are going to talk about Mary I, Henry's first child from Catherine of Aragon, and actually she was the very first woman to reign in her own right. She is often remembered as Bloody Mary, but I think it's quite an unfair remembrance. Yes, she did put to death lots of Protestants, but if you look back into the records, her sister and her father put to death just as many. You never know. History was mainly written by men, so was it propaganda? And sadly a tale of sexism. Who knows? So I do have a book recommendation about Mary, and the first one is an Alison Weir book. This is part of the Tudor Rose series, and another book by Linda Porter called Mary Tudor, the First Queen. In Linda Porter's biography, we meet Mary, who actually has been quite scarred by her father's rejection. And if you think about it, she must have suffered quite a bit from being taken away from her mother, whom I think they actually had really quite a close relationship. She did actually fight her way to her throne with some determination. And also she promised to right the wrongs of her father by taking the England, the country, in the wrong direction religiously, and did bring back Roman Catholicism. There is another book by Susanna Dunn called The Queen's Sorrow, which gives us glimpses of the woman behind the crown, being emotional, and of course just being a woman. Even though she was a queen, she was still a woman. She was devout, emotional, and actually quite human. And actually I think she did pave the way for her sister, because it went to show that women can rule, which of course brings us quite nicely to Elizabeth I. I think she did actually learn quite a lot by waiting and watching from her father, her brother, her sister. John Guy's book, Elizabeth, The Forgotten Years, shows us a shrewd, pragmatic ruler juggling faith, politics and image. She dressed to impress. Now, most recently I have read Tracy Borman's book. It's a new one called The Stolen Crown. I very much enjoyed it. Philippa Gregory's book, The Virgin Lover, also explores Elizabeth's life. And she goes on to explain actually the personal loss or cost of power. I do wonder sometimes if behind all the glittering glitz of the Tudor court, especially the golden Elizabethan court, whether Elizabeth was really quite lonely. She was always surrounded by people. But I think you can be lonely in a crowd. I think all the adaptations shows Elizabeth as a strong woman and a survivor. And I think she had to be because she ruled for many, many, many years.